So nice to have you on board here, Naomi.
All right.
It's all looking great. Thumbs up from my side. Fantastic.
So thanks so much for inviting me first, and hi to everyone who's coming to this talk. My name is Naomi Vona. I am an Italian contemporary artist that works a lot with pictures and found images of all kinds. So let's say that even if I'm not a photographer, I work a lot with photography. So I hope that you will enjoy this mix and match of stuff that I do, and I will try to answer to all your doubts and questions. So feel free to ask anything. As you can see, there is my Instagram and my website just at the beginning of the presentation. So if you want to check out, you can find everything there. And I hope that you will enjoy. So let's start with this image because I think that it represents so well what I mean about for me, what is photography for me. Actually, what I do is to parasite the memories, the past, in a way that is completely personal. So what I do, I use as a canvas found images. Most of the time are vintage pictures, but I'm also working a lot with contemporary images. So it's not just vintage photos, but in general photos. And I try to reconnect with these pictures in a very personal way. And there is always, like in the narration that I create, that is abstractions, a certain way for me to put myself into it. And I also will give you some explanation of why I do some things instead of others. But what I do basically is to do abstract art over portraits, over found pictures. And I really enjoy also the fact that for me, this is a way to celebrate the past. And I used to call these images forgotten memories, because most of the time what I pick are pictures that are actually pictures that no one wants. I buy them on vintage markets or thrift stores, or sometimes, most of the times, I buy them on eBay online. And there are tons of people that want to get rid of this picture, and they sell like tons of them for nothing. That's why for me, it's a way to say, no, I can do something about it. So I will take them and transform them in a way to celebrate them, celebrate this these ghosts, these people that we don't have any insights about them. So for me, it's just a way to put them back in history. So let's say that this is like an amazing picture, and this is a wedding picture, I think. Yes. And it's very hard to find also, beautiful big pictures when you look to vintage photos. This was a big one, that it was not huge, but a big one for being like an original vintage print. And I really enjoy the fact that it's perfect. I mean, everything is being studied. You see that photographer took care of the composition, and this was for me a good find. And I call it this in Italian is il pranzo degli spiriti. That means the lunch of the spirits. Because it was for me, because I found it now, it was for me like, who knows who is alive now. But it's amazing. It's a magic way for me to connect. And even with the titles, I try to connect and give a new history to these pictures. Let's talk also about the fact that the size, my works, especially when I share them online on Instagram or on social media, people believe they are digital artworks. They are done like on computer, but it's not. Everything is done by hand. Everything is handmade. I work on very small scale most of the time, because the pictures that I find, vintage photos, are not that big. especially like amateur pictures, like family portraits, family picture, where were being printed in a very small size. So that's why when you understand how the work is so small, you can also understand that the whole process it cannot be digital. But for me, it's also a way to connect physically with the object. That's why I don't use that much digital art, especially because I'm working directly on original pictures. And here is another sample where you can see that I work on postcard size most of the time, if I work on originals, but I have also found amazing original pictures that are big. Let's say they are not huge, but they're still very big for, you know, the size that you can find in the past. And it's always for me a magic find when you find these pictures, because they were studio portraits, they were portraits that were very well done, very high quality portraits. That's why when I find them, it's a big way for me to celebrate using my heart. All right, so that's a thing that I also like to do, is to transfer from an image to reality my visions. So the portrait of the kid was my first attempt to do a mask over a subject. This mask is very connected to what I do. It became the logo also of my identity, because it was a visionary idea that I had to transform a doily into a mask. And this is what came out. And then I did more works using this mask into different subjects. And later on, I also wanted to transfer in reality this mask. So it became a paper mask. So it was a way for me to identify with subjects that I don't know at all. That was a way. It's like for me a game that I really like to play with this concept of being part of a big family, even if I don't know them, and now we are connected. So that's the thing. The mask is also a way to cover the identity, so everyone can identify into these subjects. So that's the magic. I also love Carnival a lot, Italian Carnival. So for me, it's also a way to celebrate this big celebration that I really always loved. And again, masks. I also did some alterations of the mask and the concept of the mask. So for me, it's an amazing way for always connect to unknown subjects. And these are other like samples. Let's say that the first one, the doily effect, is the most like famous, the ones that I'm more connected to. But masks are in fact part of my research as well, masking and covering identities as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's interesting about your work is that you have, let's say, like most people, when they look at a photograph, they associate this with an imprint of reality. I mean, up to the point where a lot of people would say, but I know this happens because I've seen the photograph. And it almost seems to be like an instinctive behavior towards photography. And what you're doing to a certain degree is you completely break this chain of associations, or this chain, I think, that people think that they can actually see reality in a photograph. And then when you bring over for example, like the masks, like into, let's say, like the real world, or where the real world, this was of course also like the real world, but let's say like into the present, you're really playing with this, I guess, with this perception, I guess, of reality. Is that like a topic that you're actively researching, or is that more like a byproduct, this whole concept of amending our perception of reality that we seem to be seeing in photography?
So when I was a student, because I did design and then photography in the Academy of Fine Arts in Milan. I did the Brera Academy. I made photography. So I was into this world, but my research, since I was a student, was very connected to history. So the future of analog photography in the digital era. And also my obsession was also around the time that passes through taking the pictures. So I was studying also, I don't know, I put myself into different eras. So I was building digitally the 50s, the 60s. I did this research, but I was also making research about the time that passes. So it was a series of portraits while I was sleeping for a day, for a night. So let's say that I've always been fascinated by it, and the fact that you actually can transform history digitally. You can, fake everything. I was doing also research about, I created an imaginary family album with pictures that I took from Flickr, from collectors on Flickr. And I did a family album. So yes, let's say that my obsession was always there, but when I was a student, I didn't know that it could bring me there in what I'm doing now. But all the research, it was that obsession with time that passes away, and the future of what will be the future of photography in our era that is now completely digital. So yes, yes, you got that. Yeah, and concerning also the let's say the structure of my works, when you see circles like that, these are space-time portals. I build them in a way to create a bridge of communication between the past and the present is represented by these abstractions. Is the time-space portals are also an obsession that I always had since a kid. I was like obsessed with Quantum Leap series. I don't know if any one of you saw that. That TV series for me was everything. I saw a lot of other, like back in time, I know all the classics were like for me a must. So the portals are also a theme that is very important and represents so well what I do. And always in also the titles, you can recognize this connection. And I always, make mentions about time travel, traveling in time and space a lot of times. And of course, the medium is not just like a vintage photo. As I told before, I can use different things. These were like LP covers. This was like more a pop exploration, but still it was a way for me to work on a bigger scale, because I was just working on very small scale at the beginning. So that's another way for me to explore the images, the found images in a different way. And also what I did, these are like canvases. So these are photo transfers. So I transfer the pictures on a canvas and I make alterations out of them. So I always try to find different mediums, but there is always an image that I found as a base of my work. And this is everything that I do is always connected to it. And these are also exploration of this topic. This is always a photo transfer of Kurt Cobain when he was a kid, because I want to always celebrate the past, even if we know that it's him. We have, this kind of, sometimes we just say, yeah, I know this face, but I don't know who he is, because he was a kid. So you need to get to understand that there is research also in that. Sometimes it's like, it's easy to celebrate a pop star or a rock star when he's adult and everyone knows who he is. But like here, it was a game for me to say, who knows who he is? And what I'm doing with that, I'm doing like also like a celebration of his past, of what he was before being, Kurt Cobain.
Can you talk a little bit about the type of patterns that you apply? Can you go back one slide?
Yep.
This one here. So sometimes, or this one here in particular, sometimes it appears almost, I don't want to say psychedelic, but it seems to be playing almost like tricks with your vision. There are so many details and there are patterns, and the can you talk a little bit about what makes you choose, for example, a different type of pattern? Sometimes you're working with stripes, sometimes with dots, and I think particularly like dots seem to be there's a lot of like information, almost like random information, on a very small piece of space. And yeah, so it's there's a really interesting contrast between the naturalistic photograph and then this slightly surreal, almost kind of slightly psychedelic patterns. Can you talk a little bit about that? What makes you choose particular patterns?
So let's say that what I work with is mostly dots and lines. And I do very small variation of them. So dots sometimes are circles or ovals, and lines sometimes, are zigzag shaped or curvy or wavy or whatever. So I'm trying always to work with simple, because then I can actually do a lot of complicated things. And I love the fact that with simplicity, you can achieve something that is very, very complex. And I love to work with layers. So I always, it's like putting a lot of wheels of levels of work, of patterns in this case. So the patterns work, I put like pattern, and then I see if it needs more, I will put another one. So it's all about leveling up. And the final effect most of the time is, of course, psychedelic, because you have this kind of vision of different levels on just one level. So it confuses you a little bit, but it's part of the game. It's something that I really enjoy, because it gives this kind of layers that are in fact the portals. Is always this kind of game that you are trying to reach out the past, but you can just perceive and see a small amount of it. That's the thing. And I think that this is the meaning also of my pattern works and research as well. So yes. And this is like another way to say, this is a classic paper collage. Let's say I use just paper, but I'm still using vintage photos. But my way of doing mixed media, even the more classic ones, are still like very personal. I think that there is still this kind of game of layering and seeing through, trying to connect the pieces. So it's a fragmented reality that I really enjoy. And when I do this kind of works on paper, I put a lot of layers because I have more space and I can play with more materials rather than just having a picture as a canvas as a starting point. So here you can layer up more and more materials as well.
Do you think the three-dimensionality of your work is a key element? For example, like the image here on the left-hand side, also with the way that it is lit, it looks takes on properties of an object and not just like of a two-dimensional image, but of an object as well. It seems to be casting shadows. There are highlights, and the texture of it is really pronounced. I think it's really it's almost like tangible. I think. Yeah. Would you say that your images have a sculptural dimension or quality to them as well?
Yeah, let's say that it's a thing that have to be seen in real life, because of the fact that there is the problem that digital era, everything is flattened. You cannot see any depth, so everything is very flat. I realized that when I was a student of photography, and we were doing a lot of analog photography as well, so we were experimenting, and the finish of our work in an analog photography was incredibly deep. A digital era, even with the most beautiful and expensive cameras of the world, you cannot reach out that depth. This is what I think, and this is what I realized playing with both cameras, the depth. And this is what I really enjoy about photography in general and pictures. And this is what I also love a lot, because as you say, it gives this three-dimensional feeling. Even if you're not here, you cannot touch it, but still you can feel that it has this depth. And I love this, and I wanted to bring it from the analog photography style that I really enjoy, the richness of the depth of the picture. So yes. I also, of course, work in series because the pictures are small. You have the chance to also, think bigger, working on small scale. So this was a series of 200 postcards, of vintage postcards from all over the world. They were like all landscape picture, just giving you an example here. So all landscape postcards from all over the world, from the past. And again, the research was about the time traveling. So was greetings from, the series is called Greetings from the Future. So it was like I was receiving and sending from the past postcards. So this was my way to interact with history. And still, this is just a sample of the series. I love to work in series, and I think they look very good if you see the whole picture, and it have more sense to me to work on this scale, especially if it's involved. A lot of things are involved, a lot of places, there are so many things that you can imagine then when you work on different pictures all together. And still you can do the magic and travel. This was also a way for me to travel in time and space through the postcards. And these are other samples of this series that are always like part of this research. Okay, so now let's break a little bit from photography. This is just a way for me to say, okay, I did a lot of things. And now in 2016, I told to myself, I need to make more research in abstractions. I need for improving what I'm doing. So I did a break and I did just abstractions. Like I was very strict to myself because I needed to say, I need to improve. So I do this and I did this. Even if it's not photography, that was a point where I needed to do that in order to do what I will do later on. So it was necessary and actually helped me a lot. So it's a recommendation that I do to anyone. If you're doing something and then you need to have a break, do something different for a while, just because your mind will work better, maybe just doing something different. And actually abstraction are very important because actually what I do is make abstraction over vintage pictures. So it helped me a lot. And I did also this kind of works. They are all like very classic collage, acrylics on paper with some paper attached to it. So very classic, and some pens. And this is what, this is the evolution of what I did and now what I'm doing. what happens is that I'm expanding the territory of a vintage picture, and I'm imagining abstraction, a world around. So these are vintage pictures attached to a panel, a wood panel. So I can actually work bigger, and I can imagine a new world. That's what I want to do with my work. I want to try to go out from the picture, but still keeping the picture itself as a way for me to move and research. So what I'm doing is creating these kind of creatures that have words to say, or they actually look very, very good in my imaginary world, because actually this is what, for me, a way to transfer all my ideas from a small scale to a bigger one. And I love the fact that I can work on bigger scale as well. But yes, the research helped me out to, reach the point and say, okay, now I am in this phase where I'm expanding the territories of these forgotten memories, and they are telling me more now than in the past. So it's like the conversation between me and them is deeper. This is what I want. And these are also other like works that I did during the last 6 months, so very fresh works as well, where I'm working around as well. Sorry.
Does it matter to you from your art practice where you obtain those images from? Is it like, can it be any fleet market, any street market, or do you focus, for example, like on particular countries or maybe particular cities?
Oh no, actually, I'm not that strict. I mean, most of the time are online. So because I know that eBay offers you so much possibilities. Let's say that I don't have any selection. Most of them are from Italy, Germany, UK, because let's say that I was like here or in Italy when I was purchasing my stuff. So that's the only thing. And sometimes there are some like sellers, online sellers, that sell also foreign pictures from other families. But yes, I don't have any selection at all. I mean, I work with anything that inspires me. It will be there. Most of them are actually English and Italian, so connected to where I live now. So it's okay. It's like it's not like important. Let's say that.
We've got a question from Frankie. He says, would you say that the bright colors are an association with you trying to celebrate the past?
So let's say that the colors themselves are very connected also to my childhood. I am an 80s child. So the neons, the very bright colors are like part of that, memory. But yes, it's also because I have most of the time black and white pictures. You can play so much with colors, so you can allow yourself actually, to make crazy color combinations and use a lot of brightness. So yes. So that's another thing. Still, last works that I did. So I'm trying to expand the territory of the pictures and are becoming something different, something else. These are like hot air balloons. The series is like that. So they are floating memories. So still the memories that are trying to survive. And that's why I'm trying to create this kind of sensation of floating, because I love the fact that they are connected also to the survival of the past in some way. So that's why I love so much this series and this last work as well, because they are really, really into what I want to do with them. Now, another breaking point. So this is a video. Maybe what I want to do, if I can, I will share the video while I'll speak. So we'll just take the video. Sorry, the other one. I will do the full screen. All right. Actually, this happened. Sorry, there is like the. Okay, we'll remove the audio. In 2017, I was starting to do workshops around London. And during that time, I also wanted to participate to an Instagram challenge called the 100 Days Challenge. That is actually very simple. Every creative person can share for 100 days a project, a creative project online. And for me was this project. What is this all about? It's about altering a fashion magazine, and it was an alteration of one page every day. So for 100 days, I altered the page, I shared on Instagram, and my idea was not just to alter the pictures, but to create a bridge of communication again with what I was reading and what I was thinking about this, that it was about, I know, fashion, how the fashion industry is using female bodies to sell products, for example. And it became slowly also personal visual diary. I was putting also pages with personal like messages, or I was mentioning and quoting songs from my favorite songs, lyrics. I was writing down everything. And people really enjoyed this idea. And because of that, I was already doing workshops. So I introduced in the workshop selection also something that could involve the alteration of a fashion magazine and to transform the fashion magazine into a visual diary, a very personal one. So the idea was also to turn the frustration into creativity, especially when we talk about topics like that are very, you know, for me it was feminism, or the role that we have in some industries, or in general, if you don't like something, instead of just being unhappy about it, just say it in a creative way. So that's why I wanted to, you know, involve the local community to this project, because it was not just a way for me to showcase how good I am, because this is not the thing. The purpose was to involve the community. And that's why I'm very connected also to this project. We are still working on alteration, of course, but now we are also putting the concept, we are talking about also contemporary themes, contemporary pictures, and we are contextualizing it in a way that it's completely different. So this is what I love, transform completely the meaning of things, especially if I don't like them. And this was the case, but it was fun. And this is also something that I wanted to, you know, to say with my students, I would just say, just do it, because it's releasing the stress, but also have to be something that it's fun, playful, of course. And of course, we also I was giving also some technical, you know, tips on how to manipulate images. So it was about everything connected to the alteration in my way, let's say that. But yes, this was an amazing experience as a person, as an artist, and I would recommend to anyone to do something like that. Even like workshops in general are an adventure for me, but this one was so personal that every time I do it, now I'm doing it also online, it was like amazing. So
has the magazine seen your work? Have you tagged them like on social media in any way? Did they react?
I think that I did at the beginning, but they never replied to me. I'm not sure if they did like it or not, but I mean, at the same time, I don't want to. I think that this is like, it's not all about them anymore. You know, when you transform it, so it's in such a big way, a thing. Now it became something else.
Mm.
And I mean, if they like it or not, then it will not be my problem. And yes, as I told you, this was like, these are some workshops I did, these kind of workshops around London. This was in the affordable, in the other art fair in the left. And this was in Italy in another event in Ancona.
Yeah, I think you need to share the other screen. We still see the video.
Okay, sorry. So let me check. So yes, maybe here.
Ah, great.
So it's like, I was like moving around, and this was one of the workshops that made more success. And I really enjoyed the experience, of course. And this was like in 2000, the last that I did in 2019, before, you know, what happened. And all right, so sorry, but I think that I need to go on full screen again. All right, so speaking about fashion and contemporary images, this is also something that I did later on after my project. I wanted also to explore contemporary photography and see how I could actually work on these images, because it's a different experience as well for me. And I really enjoy the fact that even with these, you know, very like beautiful pictures, there are like studio portraits, they are perfect. I can still, you know, put myself into it and do the game of transformation and give something completely different to the pictures that are actually fashion portraits that have the sole, you know, meaning to be beautiful pictures. But this is what I wanted to do, to break this into something that was more conceptual, not just beautiful to see. And this is actually another small video, but let me see, because every time I stop the share, I need to start again. Let me see if I can just, can you see the video?
I think so.
Okay, so let me see if I can. Let's say that my project of the fashion magazine now it became an online workshop because of the pandemic. So I actually translated what I was doing around London online. And this was just a way for me to say, okay, I don't want to stop the idea. I know that a lot of people cannot come to London. So I just say, okay, we can do it online. And I had, of course, a lot of people that wanted to join me because the idea was very playful. And I think that this was the thing that I wanted to keep, like the connection with the community, even during the pandemic. Okay, now I think no more videos. So let's go back. Let's go back to the preview. Let me see if you can see. Okay. So now it's just like, these are the last slideshows are a few collaborations that I did in the past 6-8 months with publishing editors, with like different like realities, like it's more like commissioned work. It's just a way also for me to give you an idea on how I operate in another like branch of my work that is more commercial, of course. but still keeping, you know, myself into it. Every time, of course, they contact me, I want to be sure that that part of myself has to be there. Otherwise, it would be pointless for me to work with these companies if they don't want this authenticity, or they want me to or they want me to do something different or from another like style. I will never accept it. So authenticity is the key for me to work on commercial work. Otherwise, it would be really, really pointless. So this is like a portrait that would be in this book. And still I've used a vintage photo, so still like, but connected to a story of a person that exists in the present. So I really also enjoy the fact that you can connect someone to someone else, even if they never met before, but there is a connection, there is a way to do that. And this is like a challenge also for me. And still keeping myself into the style and introducing words from the person that was like part of the story. So still creating a connection also between these two people. This is another like, they selected this for a cover of a book, one of my works. Even in the simplicity, I love the fact that I always try to find a way to create a story. So this was about, the title was The Darkness Fighters. So it was for me a way to create something that it was a story behind the picture that I actually have no idea who they are, where they're from. So that was the thing that I loved. This is a series of portraits that I did for United Nations Population Fund. So I collaborated with them with a series of portraits, and the topic they did like kind of, let me see if I can show you. This is a report that they do every year. And this year, the topic was My Body is My Own. So every kind of information here is very important, of course. And I was in charge of working on portraits of these women. We were talking about their experience, helping other women. So it was very important to me to do a good job. And still we're working on contemporary pictures, and I'm trying always to create a story around these portraits. And the themes were very different, very strong. So the topic were also very, sensitive. That's why it was important also to be delicate, to try to, work in collaboration in terms of, do not be offensive, to do the things in the right way, but still put yourself into the work. So that's the authenticity that we were talking about. Still, this is again other portraits done for this project. Again, other portraits for the United Nations. And this is another collaboration they did with Welcome Collection, London Museum. That's another amazing experience that I had, because I was able to put my hands in the story and the pictures of a family. So the writer just wrote down a story about the past of our family. So I was having all the information that I needed in order to pursue, the work. So that was another experience for me, because in this case, I work with images from the past, but I had all the information that I needed. I knew exactly who they were, where they're from. So that was for me an incredible experience as well. But it's very challenging when you know who the subjects are. It's more difficult. So that's the thing that maybe was different from what I did like for myself. Again, this is part of the same like project research. This collaboration was great, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And this is one of my latest one. This is an ongoing series of portraits. And the women are women that own restaurants or pubs, so they are talking about their stories. So I really enjoy the fact that I can still connect to the faces that I'm working on. So I have some stories, some behind the scenes, and so still I can connect in a more personal way. And still it's an amazing experience as well, working with these big realities, let's say that. And I think, yes, that's all.
Thank you so much. Oh, this is amazing. I've got two really interesting questions that relate to each other. That's been sitting here for quite a few minutes, but I thought it makes probably more sense to pass them on to you at the end. Ciara asks, hi Naomi, how much pre-planning goes into your images, and do you make your patterns quite organically? And Katerina asks, and I think that question relates to the Ciara's quite nicely. She asks, how do you choose your colors? Do they relate to the subject in the photos or the theme of the illustration?
So let's say that actually I'm lucky enough to not plan that much. If I do my personal works, I do not plan that much. I do it maybe for bigger works just because there is so much, space to fill, and maybe you need to plan a little bit ahead. But let's say that not really for my personal projects, but for everything is like more maybe commercial, yes, or for commissioned work for clients, of course, just because I need to show them what I have to do before. So yes, in that case I have to, because they have to approve which color they want, which pattern they like the most. But let's say that the point of break where I studied a lot of abstractions helped me out in order to not plan too much now, because I did a lot of research before. I did like it was a way for me to say, okay, I train myself, I see that this works and this doesn't. So in the future, I know what I have to do or not. I'm not a big planner in that, but just because I did so much research before. So at the very end, you do it before, sooner or later, you have to. So
because there was also a decorative element, I guess. I mean, to your work. If you plan this or not, but your images look beautiful, I guess. I mean, they look very appealing. What I find really interesting is that you, for example, turn something that you would like to criticize, instead of just like, pushing this or wiping this off the table, to kind of convert this into something positive, something like your point of criticism, let's say, when it comes to emancipation, for example, and as you said, how human bodies are used to ultimately sell products, instead of just to as I said, just to wipe this off the table, instead of that, to convert this into a positive outcome, into a positive creative statement. It's really quite interesting, I think.
So it depends on the mood, because, for example, the whole research in the in the magazine, for example, was a mixed match of things. It was most of the time a way also for me to transform the subjects into a more powerful subject. So like give them like a purpose rather than just being like beautiful women, for example, that were just doing like their modeling. So let's say that it depends also on what I read on the advertising, because sometimes there are some things that are so like so strangely, I don't understand why they're advertising or saying that thing. So the only way for me to address that is to say it's just crap. So there is nothing else that I could say. But in other terms, there are other pages that are all about celebration, womanhood, or celebrating also things that I like. It was like songs or things that I enjoy. So let's say that because of that, it became what I call visual diary, where every day you can get up from your bed in a different mood. And that was the point of the whole project. So just transform your frustration into creativity and see what leads you. So that's the only thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an amazingly uplifting way to use creativity. Yeah, really, as I said, so I mean, particularly like I think like in the fine art world, which can be very sober and very, I don't know, very, very sometimes humorless, I think, in the fine art world. Yeah. And I think, your work's very different in that respect, so that it adds an element of lightness and sometimes even humor into this context, I think.